Welcome to In the Margins, where we spark connection through stories. I'm your host, Laura Lyn Donahue, and each week I invite guests to step outside the lines and into the margins with me. You'll hear the untold stories, the stories of risk and reward, of triumph and trial, and everything in between. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. To In the Margins. Today, my guest is Simona Pappalardo. And Simona is a cross-cultural woman who has explored so much in communication and cultural transformation and adapting to culture. She is originally from Milan. Simona, welcome. I'm so glad to have you on In the Margins.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. You're doing well today?
Yes, awesome. Snow on the ground already, and
Oh
sounds
my
like
goodness.
winter is here.
Well, I am just so excited to get to talk to you. And I know that you have quite a background. You're originally from Milan, and maybe you came to the States via Malaysia. Is that right?
Not exactly. I had
Not
an
exactly.
expatriation opportunity in Malaysia. Then I moved back to Italy for 3 years, and then I moved here to the United States.
Okay, gotcha. And for you, the transition to moving from Italy to the United States, it was a cultural shock, to say the least.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I want to talk about that and the transformation, kind of your process and your stories, but I'd really like to go back to when you were a child in Italy. You mentioned that around age 6, you began to have an interest in the United States. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough that my mom was a preschool teacher. So she has been teaching preschool basically for 40 and plus years, right? And because of that, she knew that young kids have an opportunity to learn languages with much more ease than, let's say, when we are adults, right? Our brains are more malleable and all that kind of stuff. So because of that knowledge, she immediately wanted me to learn English. Now, this is the late 80s in Italy. And that's not at all a thing, right? Kids started learning foreign language when they were already in middle school or something like that. But because of my mom's first foresight, I had the opportunity to engage with the English language. That opened up a whole set of opportunities for me, because from that, it came then the opportunity when I was 11 years old, for example, to participate in a study holiday. And so I went to Ireland and stayed for 3 weeks there. And then the following years, I went to Scotland and all that. So that initial studies of English, it was an opening the door for me to explore, if you want, the world, right? And that's how it all started. Let me say, my journey of then having an expatriation opportunity in Malaysia. I've always wanted to live abroad. And then many years later, when I had the opportunity to come to the States, at that point I was married, and me and my husband got the opportunity. We definitely wanted to be here. So yes, that's the backstory.
Yeah, that's great. So for those of us listeners who have not ever been an expat, can you explain a little bit what that means and what the transition is like for someone?
Yeah, the word expat is really a word used in corporate, let me say. So it typically is a temporary assignment where the company sends you across the borders, where they need someone, right? Probably trained in the headquarters or something like that, right? To go and establish some training, or let's say develop a new team or something like that. And that's why I went to Malaysia. I stayed there for 1 year. And then when I came then to the United States, that was actually a relocation opportunity, which means you are here to stay. So it wasn't anymore a temporary assignment, but was for the long run.
Okay. 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 So when you became permanent instead of an expat, so what did that mean exactly?
Oh, it meant the fact that you are here to stay, right? It opens up a new kind of worm, let me say, of opportunities, but also
Mm,
thoughts, right? Like
mm,
also challenges, because it's very, very different when, as I said, you are there temporary. Okay, maybe you take it easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh,
yeah. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
is good. You explore, you travel a lot, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, at least for me, it was like, I want to see as many places as possible, right? When
Sure. Sure.
instead I moved here and decided that the US would be my new home, there was I mean, I needed to make it work in all aspects
Mm-hmm.
of my life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
anymore only about the job, but it's also about finding a home or finding friends. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so it really opens up a whole different mindset that I think as
Mm,
long as you're here for just the experience, you don't even think about those things, right? So
mm,
that's when definitely understanding also the culture became much more important. Now, don't take me wrong. I also wanted to learn about the culture in Malaysia, right?
sure.
But it's very, very different when you know that you're going to go back versus, okay, this is my new home, right? And
Yeah.
now everything needs to work in some sort of way. So yeah, that's the challenge. But again, also the opportunity, because if not, I think there are certain things that you didn't even put into your own horizon, right?
Mm,
Vice
mm-hmm.
versa. It was an exciting time for sure.
Definitely exciting. um, so during that time, was it, it wasn't really easy to integrate into a new culture, was it?
No, of course, there
No.
have been many moments, especially at the beginning, where, you wonder because let's be honest, at the beginning, things don't make sense, right? So, this
Sure.
is also what nowadays, I'm a coach and I really help people understand some of these cultural differences. And so, what I help people realize is that culture is some sort of an iceberg, right? So it's
Mm,
very easy for people to focus on the top part of the iceberg, the one that is above the sea water, right?
right.
But the reality is that culture is much, much deeper. So it's
Mm,
easy to see, okay, people eat different food or they have a different organization of their daily life, right? Like, for example, Americans go to the office much earlier than Italians. just as an example, right? These things, of course, they are kind of like you think, oh, I got it. Like the first months or 6 months that you're here, you think you got it. But there are much deeper differences
mm,
that, by the way, not even necessarily American can explain to you about because being part of the culture, you don't see them, right?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
get to see them only when you are the outsider. And
Mm,
so those things are hard to explain and they are hard to make sense at the beginning. But for example, they are really the core of what
uh,
culture is all about.
sure.
For
Yeah.
example, I
Yeah.
have an example. The first day I came to the office, I brought with me a salad. My first day in
Right.
office in the United States, I brought with me a salad because I read a book before coming
Right.
here. And I read that Americans tend to have quick lunches and they just, they want to move on with their daily tasks, right? So that they can
Right.
go back to their families in the night. And so
Mm.
I went and I bought a salad because I was prepared, or so I thought, to the
Right.
eventuality that nobody would offer me to go to the canteen. And guess what?
Mm.
Midday
What?
comes and nobody asked me to go to the cafeteria with them, right?
Oh, wow.
And yes, I have my salad, and my instinct is to run to the restroom and cry, right?
Sure.
Why?
Yeah.
Because in Italy, if that something like that had to happen, you would have probably done something really, really wrong, like not
Mm.
being invited to the cafeteria the first
Yeah.
day in a new
Yeah.
role,
Yeah.
in a new office is like, gosh, what have you done to deserve something like that, right? And
That's
so
what you're thinking,
that's
right?
what, like, of course, thanks to my experiences before, as I said, during my study holidays in Malaysia and all that, I was able to understand that it was me reading the situation wrong. But nevertheless, even if my brain was telling me, my heart sank in that moment, right? And so this is what I really help now expats, relocated people, in general, global leaders, to figure out how to, let's say, have the heart and the gut pick up with what maybe but our brain is telling us.
Yes, yes. Yes. Well, tell us a little bit more about your coaching and how you do help others transition, and maybe if you've got a story that would you'd be willing to share, personal or with a client, obviously not naming them, but maybe there's a story that you could share as well, just as an example.
Yeah, so this is really so first of all, I'm an engineer as a background. Studied for 20, I worked in corporate America for 20 years. I studied to become an engineer and all of that, right? So I come from that corporate environment. And now what I try to help is having people that, obviously, let's be honest, if the company sends you overseas, probably it's because you're doing a good job, right? Like in your own country, you are probably seen as a high potential and all that, right? Now you are sent overseas maybe to fix a situation, to further develop the team, whatever is the reason, and you have this big assignment to execute, and you think that what you have been doing has worked before, so why shouldn't it work now? Yeah. And so what happens to a lot of my clients is that maybe they are 6 months, 1 year into their assignments, and they realize that, oh, what made me successful there is not making me successful here, right? And so that's exactly what I help them understand. And some of them need to really work on even understanding rationally. There are some clients that really don't even have made sense yet, exactly how things are done here. There are certain others that maybe have learned, like they have read or studied something, but at the same time, they struggle. And a big portion of the reason why people struggle with cultural adaptation is because they also care about staying authentic, right? So in people's mind, adapting culturally sometimes means pretending, and it's not at all what I help people with. The reality of cultural adaptation is speaking a language, let me say, and I don't really mean only English, but even everything else that goes, so that your intention are perceived correctly. That's what I help them understand, because each and every one of us wear color lenses, and because I grew up Italian, I wear color lenses different than you, that you grew up American, right? And so if I can change a little bit the way I color things, I say things, I communicate things, now there is a bigger chance that you understand what is exactly that I mean. And that's what I really help my clients do. Understanding that adapting does not mean giving up authenticity. On the contrary, is making your authenticity shine fully.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. 'Cause that's got to be hard, to make that authenticity shine. So I'm curious, what particular event happened that moved you from engineering into coaching
Yeah,
expats in particular?
as time passed by, I've come to realize that I was so much more interested in the people than the technical aspects of things, even if, of course, I'm an engineer, so I get the technical part. But what really made me passionate was about unleashing people potential, right? And so because I was working in a corporate environment, I started meeting coaches, and I came into contact with the coaching industry, and I'm like, oh, wow, what these people do is really, really cool. And I started thinking about having a second career as a coach. And that's when, I remember my husband and I were vacationing in Italy, Christmas 2019. And I was telling him, you know what, maybe in 10 years or so, I want to start my new career. And it was a very long-term plan, because also I was very busy. I was very accomplished. I liked what I did. I was traveling a lot. So there was no way I could do anything in parallel or anything like that. And then guess what happened? I told you it was Christmas 2019.
Yeah.
Pandemic hit, right? And now all of a sudden, all of us are stuck at home. And I mean, it was terrible, but it also opened a window of opportunity for me, because that meant that maybe this is my time to get my coaching certification and all of that. At the end of 2021, I got my certification. And then I was like, well, let's see. And now, I mean, I was still happy doing what I was doing, but then a friend of mine and an ex-colleague did this passage from corporate to becoming a coach. And he was asking me, hey, would you mind maybe helping me out with some clients? And so I started to get my feet wet, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really, really like that. And then things in the company I was working for, I mean, the company was shrinking. So in March of 2024, there was no space anymore for me. But honestly, I'm so grateful, because I think it would have taken me much, much longer if that wasn't the case, versus instead, this was like the perfect alignment of the planets, you know, and now it's 1.5 years that I'm in business and never looked back.
Wow, that is great. So during this past year or more, I'm not sure, you've been working on a book, correct?
Yes.
Authentically Yours. That's the title. Okay. All right. So tell us about your book.
Yeah. So the book is an hybrid, in the sense that it's a memoir, but it's also a self-help book. So every chapter is, let's say, a story and a chapter of my own life. But at the end, I try to use those as an opportunity to talk about some learnings that I had. And the chapter ends with some self-coaching questions. So really to help people understand, even if maybe they are not going exactly through the same story, but there is something that can be applied to make them understand what it really means to be authentic. It's a big thing for me, authenticity. And as I said, is a core thing, a core principle that I try to help my clients. So realizing that each and every one of us has something really, really special to offer to this world, then you also need to be sure that what your intentions are perceived correctly by the people around you, right? And that's what authenticity really means to me, and leadership means to me. Yeah. So it's interesting how you have woven in your personal stories and memoir with self-help. I think that's a great combination. And I'm curious as to, when you were writing your book, was there ever a time that you needed to pause and take a break for any reason in particular, that maybe it was an issue you needed to deal with? I don't think there was a pause per se. I will tell you, it was hard at the very beginning. Like, it took me a while to understand how to start the book. Even finding the voice was until maybe chapter 4. Honestly speaking, I was like, this is hard. You know what I'm saying? But then as things progressed, it was like, I don't know, it started, I want to say rolling off my tongue even, or rolling off my pen. I don't know how to say that. You know, like, it started I found my own voice. By the way, I was at a workshop at the beginning of the year in January, and I chose voice as my word of the year. And so, yes, I'm really, really happy, right, that by December we are publishing this book, because yes, I have definitely worked a lot this year on finding my own voice. That's really interesting. I understand, just looking for that voice. You want the book to have its own personality, and you want it to reflect you, obviously, because it's about you and you're writing it. But tell me, how did you transition? The person who wrote Authentically Yours, how is she different from the person who left Italy? Completely different. Completely different. Okay. I mean, first of all, I feel strongly that over the course of the past 11 years, I mean, I grew up. Sometimes I really feel I came to the United States that I was a girl. Like, not age wise. I mean, look, I was 33 back then, so I wasn't a girl from a number standpoint. But yes, I grew up so much in terms of leadership. One thing that I really, really appreciate about American culture is this can-do attitude. There's ability of always, I find it very positive, proactive. Challenges are seen as opportunities. In Italy, it's not exactly like that. And so I think I have really married into that. Even the fact I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. If you asked me a few years back, I would have told you, no, my world is corporate, climbing the corporate ladder, something like that.
Right.
But I think it's because I found so many people in this country really open to that idea. And I've never felt as supported. Like, whoa, this support I had over the past 18 months or so. Wow. I'm really grateful and thankful because it's like people saw before I could that this was possible, and that kept me going.
So what about community as you transitioned here and trying to establish community with friends, coworkers? How did that go for you?
Once I understood the unwritten rules of how you create a community here in the US, this is one of the things that I'm telling you, especially with my female clients. It's definitely a sticky point in the sense that in Italy, we are a very relationship-based culture. So what typically happens is that people just like the famous hanging out for coffee, or going out for lunch that probably you've heard about, right? Like the Dolce Vita, right? Like
yes.
Definitely, right, is something that over here in the United States is hard for an Italian. When you come here, people are a little bit more like work related. Often the culture is defined as transactional, which basically means that people are more oriented towards executing tasks than maybe creating the relationship. But that does not mean at all that Americans don't want to create a relationship. It's just that the way you go about it is different. Like, I'll just give you an example. People over here have invited me multiple times to have a game night, something that in Italy would never happen. Because again, there is a task, right? There is something that we're going to do. While in Italy, you sit at the table and you start having dinner, and at midnight you're still there having dinner.
Right.
Like, it's really a lot about that versus maybe doing something like having a game night, a game of cards, or going out and maybe go watch a football game. Or you know what I'm saying? Those are much more task oriented. But again, that doesn't mean that you cannot create friendship and relationship. So it was just a tweak to understand. I feel bad for my first Americans in guests when I basically shackled them to the dinner table for 4 hours. I think I didn't know any better. I'm sorry, guys. You're still friends, by the way, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it took me a while to adapt a little bit what that meant.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Here in America, we are very task oriented. And it's interesting that you mention that it's socialization is almost, it's an activity. It's not just sitting down together, like you said, and eating a meal or having a lengthy conversation. I think as our culture has grown, we've gone from, we had the front porch mentality of sitting out on your front porch, talking with your neighbors, community. And then as technology has entered and, cars, everything, it just keeps coming in. And then the front porch becomes a stoop, and then it's just a landing, and the front porch is no more. And so that, to me, that's sad. I feel like I would have liked more of that. Growing up, just my mother was very, very social and had people over. So we did enjoy that. And we would sit for hours at a meal. We didn't play any board games. But I'm also from the South, so sometimes the Southerners can keep you talking. But I like the idea of just recognizing that it's important to have community that isn't just about a task. While the tasks and activities are fun, community, I mean, in my opinion, you've got to offer some vulnerability. Have you found that to be the
Absolutely.
case? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the end of the day, I always show up authentically, which also means vulnerable, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
it means it's just, as I said, I think it's the way you need to go about it in the two different cultures is a little bit different, right? Like
Yep.
here in the US, I mean, I'll be honest, I have amazing friendship,
Mhm.
people that I almost consider like sisters to me or
Sure.
like their husband too, right? And so, yeah, I think it's absolutely possible. And I would also say that people are starving for that because I think, as you said, everyone needs community. We are all used to maybe having a community, but here in this country
Mhm.
where people travel a lot, maybe they relocate and all that, we are all in the situation of having to rebuild that community, right? Because maybe
Right.
for many years, for example, I lived in Michigan and now I'm in Chicago, right? And so I have to kind of restart,
Yeah.
but I've never felt excluded. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. People have always
Yeah.
opened the doors. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful to know that you've been received well and welcomed and over the years. You've been here a long time.
I have. Yeah.
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 So what would you say has been maybe the most difficult or challenging part of being authentic in your relationships? Is there one area that was challenging that you weren't ready to, well, be vulnerable and authentic in that situation with a colleague or a new friendship?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm also like as a woman, right?
Uh-huh.
And in an
Yeah.
engineering environment, right? Things have not
Mhm.
always been 100% perfect. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Sure.
Like,
Of course.
yeah, it took, especially earlier in my career, like I had some challenges back, right? Like this is
Mhm.
even in Italy, not even here in the United States. But yes, so finding also in that sense, right? Culture is not
Mhm.
only our nationality, culture is a multitude of things. Is
Yeah.
our gender, is our social class, is our upbringing, so there is a faceted reality around culture. And so I would say that sometimes being authentically a woman in a male
Mhm.
dominated environment, right?
Yeah.
Things like you are never assertive enough because as a leader, you need to be assertive. But as a
Uh-huh.
woman, you need to be collaborative, right? And so women
Right.
are stuck in this
Right.
so-called double bind dilemma.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've always look to me the secret is always to assume good intent. I've
Mhm.
never felt I never wanted to be the person hung up on this, like, but be the best version of my own self and be the
Mhm.
leader I want to be. And then everything else will sort out. And
Yeah.
that has been my guiding principle, right? Not overthink it too much in that sense.
Well, I'm sure that's what makes you a great coach. You're so encouraging and so you're you've been an engineer and now you're in the coaching business. You've also in all of this you have creativity. You're a creative person with your book coming out, and tell us how you incorporate your creativity into your day to day or on the weekends or into your job in general.
Well, I think that now that I'm a coach, I mean, creativity really comes into making sure that I focus on that client I have in front of me, right? So
Mhm.
every one of us needs slightly different things. So even from a cultural standpoint, of course, let's say help people understand the genetic principles, right? But
Right.
then I run some assessments. I see exactly where they are from a cultural standpoint. And then the topics they bring up and the challenge that they bring up is very, very particular to them and their situation, right? So in that
Mhm.
sense, I think whenever you have a job that requires interaction with people. You need to be creative because you cannot apply a cookie cutter kind of approach, right?
Yeah.
Then, of course, the big creative part of the job this year has really been the book, right? Like having to find the right words, the right tone and voice, as I was saying,
Sure.
right? I consider that. Yeah, it has definitely stretched me out of my comfort zone, but I'm really, really glad I got to do that. And, it's now that it's written, I feel like, oh my gosh, this book is, sorry to say, but I think it's really good.
Of course you can.
If I reread it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is my real life. I've really been putting all of me on those pages, and I hope that it shows. That's what I'm trying to say.
I wonder if in your book, if there's a story of vulnerability, a story where in order to get to the other side of a difficult challenge, you had to be vulnerable or you struggled.
Yeah. So related to that, there is a chapter where I share openly about my struggles with fertility. So, I mean, you might think about me as the engineer, as the corporate executive, as now as the business owner, the cultural expert and all of that. But I'm also a person, right?
Yes.
And as a person overall, having my daughter wasn't an easy process. Now I'm very glad that she's here. She's 3.5 years old, and I love her to Jupiter and back, like I like to say.
Of course.
But yes, it was definitely a challenge. So my husband and I went through 3 miscarriages, and then we had to go through IVF and all this kind of stuff. Then the pregnancy was fairly easy, like in comparison to everything before.
Sure.
But yes, that experience really taught to me a lot. And the reason why I say that is because it was the first time in my life, probably, where I couldn't simply force myself into results, right? Like as a corporate executive, as an engineer, I'm used to the fact that you sum 2 + 2 makes 4. You know what I'm saying? You need to deliver results, and this is how you measure things. Very, like, let me say, structure, mathematical, if you want, something like that. No matter which clinic you go to for IVF, well, nobody can really guarantee you that despite all the money, physical effort, mental effort, time commitment, and everything in between, because IVF completely disrupts your life in all areas. Let me say, despite you doing all of that and putting so much of effort, there is literally nobody that guarantees you that you're going to have a baby, right? And so that was one of the biggest lessons of my life. I would say this idea of trusting the process, which ultimately means that to be a leader, right? Like, this is how I even define leadership. Leadership is about taking the action and making the steps that you need in order to maximize your probabilities, but at a certain point, trust that the outcome at a certain point will come, right? And that's what has happened for us. And as I said, my daughter Sophie is the joy of my life. But it wasn't a given, right? And that was really hard to come to overcome. Yeah.
Sure. I'm sure it's obviously taught you lessons to carry on into your life. I also see part of it as you aren't in control. And when we don't have the reins anymore and we can't make it happen, not because we're not trying, but because we cannot, we are incapable of, that has sometimes been a low point for me, just of where I've had to say, okay, then I give up, or I need a break. I need rest from this, regroup. How do you work with your clients in those types of situations?
To me, in every challenge, there is really an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if I think about all this story of IVF, I'm telling you, because I went through all of that, I think I was so prepared to be a mom. Like, I do remember how I looked at every, you know how kids are, right? Like, I mean, every 3 hours. So it's hard, right? Especially in the beginning and all of that. But I perfectly remember waking up because Sophie needs her milk, right? And the house is quiet, and just be there with my daughter, right, on my breast. Wow. And realizing, like, I think that because it was such a long process for us to get that point, I have come to realize how blessed that was, even if it was hard, right? Like, I think it prepared me in a very different way. And for that, I'm extremely thankful. Even during the process itself, like, I even written in the book that, of course, I was waking up, I was living in Michigan, I was coming to Chicago to do IVF. So it was a 2-hour drive and all that, early morning, waking up basically every other day at 5 a.m., right? And then I found a great place in Chicago that would have a wonderful Italian cappuccino and a croissant.
Yeah.
Like, you need to look at the beauty in the small little things, I think, and what opportunities you have in that difficult situation that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's what I try to bring my clients. And not all the situations are perfectly, we can get there exactly, but at least trying to put also some positive perspective means a lot.
Absolutely. Do you have any particular tools or techniques that you encourage your clients with? What pops in my head right now is meditation, but it might not be meditation. But is there something that you incorporate?
Yeah, so I have a model that comes from my coaching school and all of that, specifically about talking about different level of energies. And so we talk about how, in the end of the day, people that have a higher level of energy, which means more positive, we call it anabolic energy. It's a better chance of obtaining what you really want and having better satisfaction in life. So after I walk through some of those models, and then we do some other work, right? Like, we all have a self-saboteur in all of us, right? So when we feel like that giving up sensation or something like that, it's really because someone in our little brain is telling us, maybe you are not enough for this or something like that, right? So after we peel the onion, let me say, about what it means to live life with a high energy, right? And at the same time, who's really talking? Is it really you, or is the little saboteur in you, right? And that really opens a lot of doors for a lot of people. But yeah, it doesn't happen like in one session, right? It's the work, the consistent work together.
The work is what you have to put in to get to the other side, right? We don't always want to go through the valley to get to the mountaintop, but you pretty much have to.
Yes.
But have a
already
choice.
realizing that you need to do some work is a great first step. I'll be honest with you, it's difficult to trust a coach, right? I don't even blame the people that are on the edge of getting into coaching, and then they're like, what are you asking me? Why should I trust you, right? I don't blame them, but you got exactly the point. Until you don't do the work, you are not going to reach the mountaintop. So what's the worst that can happen in trusting that a coach can lead you there, right? So
yeah. Well, that's good. Well, you have such a wonderful story. I want to make sure that is there anything in particular that you would like our listeners to come away with today? Just a bit of coaching advice, perhaps?
Absolutely. So first of all, I will share with everyone that my book is being released on December 1st. So if you are interested in learning more about it, you can get to my website, www.coachingwithsimona.com/book, and you can pre-order it or download your ebook or paperback copies. And at the same time, on the website overall, you can see more of what I do. There are a lot of videos about some other stories that I share with my clients and all of that. And at the same time, maybe that's my best coaching advice that I can give. And is, what's the worst that can happen in trying out to do the work, right? Like we were saying before, there are a lot of people that are on the verge of taking action. Don't wait for the perfect moment, for the right moment. You start by starting, right? And the first step is what matters. So that's what I would say.
If you don't, the perfect moment's not ever going to come. Neither is the perfect timing, nor will it really come in the timing you hoped for necessarily. And I was reading a blog recently that the author was talking about self-help and, reading self-help books and helping yourself get better in whatever area you're struggling with, whatever it might be. But just reading the information is not the same as applying the information. And I think I've probably found myself in some situations where I just thought, oh, I need another book. Oh, I need another book. Oh, I need another book. And then all of a sudden I think, okay, I don't want to read another book. I want to, I feel like I know it all, so to speak. Not really, but maybe that forced me into taking that step. But also I feel like when that happened, the time was right. And, you do get to a point in your life where whether it's a literal breaking point or something, traumatic or a life event, it will put you over into the next step, taking that next step.
Absolutely. But you're right. You can read a million books, but until you don't do that one single thing, one single step, you are still where you were before the 1 million books, right?
Yeah,
Once you take that one step, you are one step closer. But yes, taking action is what coaches work very hard to help people get to, right? Taking action.
I'm sort of moving toward the close of our discussion because we've had such a great discussion, but I often like to ask my guests, what are you watching? What are you reading? And what are you listening to?
Okay.
So I wondered if you had an opportunity to think through any of those. Are you listening to something in particular right now?
I just listen honestly to pop music, but what I'm reading right now is Ikigai. I don't know if you're familiar with that book. Is a Japanese concept, basically.
Okay.
And so there is a book called Ikigai. It basically explains how in the Japanese culture, people find happiness when they merge what they are good at, what they're passionate about, what the world needs, and what people pay for, right? And it's a very interesting book. And so that's what I'm reading. Very coachy, right? Your free time, Simona. Read self-help book like a good coach, But yes, that's definitely a good one that I would recommend.
Okay,
Ikigai.
Ikigai. Okay, great. Well, what about it? Do you binge any television shows, or is there a favorite show you like to watch that you?
Well, sorry,
you can be vulnerable.
My age
Go ahead.
Here. I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan. I am
yeah.
So yes, like Grey's Anatomy. I remember. Do you know why? By the way, I will never stop that show because the first episode broadcasted in Italy the very same day was my first day working. And so I'm really connected with that show because these new interns, right? I don't even know, they were interns, I think, at the beginning, started screwing up in the hospital. And I felt like, oh yeah, that's what's going to happen to me right now. So that's why I love. And 20 years later, I'm like, yeah, I still watch that show.
It's a good show. Now, I stopped watching. I can't remember how many seasons in, but it's still going, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Is Meredith still on the show? Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good escapism a little bit too.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you are such a joy. I've really, really enjoyed having you, Simona. And I know that our listeners have gleaned some information and some real encouragement for being authentic and the importance of that. And I just want to thank you for being here so much.
Thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure. Even if there is one single story that the audience can relate to, I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to share it with them.
Yes. Well, me too. And that's what it's about. It's about the stories and about the connection. And so I really appreciate you and your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for joining us in the margins. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Our social media handle is @podcastinginthemargins on Instagram and Facebook. And please stay connected. Like, follow, and share our podcast. What you do can help our podcast be successful. In the Margins is produced and edited by Dawn Donahue. Our guest liaison is Kim Orendor, and we're supported with gratitude by W Brand Publishing, where your story matters. Thanks for joining us.